podcast is Christian. This podcast is reformed. This podcast is post-millennial, optimistic, and reconstructionist. And this podcast is for fun.
The Lord has established his throne in the heavens, and his kingdom rules over all. Welcome, everyone, to episode 6 of Reconciled Radio. I'm Jacob.
I'm Brian.
I'm Jesse.
Cool. Welcome back to another episode. We're going to get after it again this week in our secret underground bunker in Northeast Michigan. Coming to you live.
Wait a minute.
We're not live.
No.
Well, you guys on. We're coming to you live from Northeast Michigan. How you guys doing, man?
Doing
not
awesome.
bad.
Happy to be back.
Yeah.
Good. This is kind of one of my favorite times of the week, man.
It is.
Getting back together with
I
you guys.
really look forward to it.
I do too. We all love hard music.
Yeah.
Right?
I love all kinds of
Like
music.
hard isn't difficult, right? That's what you mean. Difficult to perform, difficult to play.
Difficult to
I like-
understand.
Difficult to listen to?
I like that
Difficult to
too.
understand.
I like that too. But I mean, we all love aggressive music. Does that
Yeah.
make more
Okay,
sense?
yeah. Can't
Yeah.
confirm.
We
Yeah,
all like
we're all
aggressive
young. We're all
music.
under 30-ish.
Yeah.
What?
Is that a pre?
I'm under, definitely under 30.
Dude, you're almost 40, right? Are you halfway there?
I'm halfway there.
Halfway between 30
halfway
and 40?
between 30 and 40. I'm 30.
Oh, I thought you were only like 32.
No, I'm 36 next month.
Oh my gosh.
Mind blown.
Dang. So we know who the elder is. In the circle. Cool. Yeah, I wanted to talk to you guys about that. I wanted to talk to you guys about aggressive music because I like aggressive music. You guys see my shirt today? I'm rocking the August Burns Red.
Yes, sir.
Saw
they're
them.
awesome.
I've seen them a couple times. Last time I saw them was, I guess it was last June or July. And they
I'm
were just
jealous of that.
incredible. Saw them in downtown LA with a couple other bands. Another band that I really like is they're not a Christian band, but they played with August Burns Red. They're called Oceans. Oh crap! I'm gonna forget about it. Never mind. I'll have to remember that.
That sounds like a really great.
Yeah.
That's a solid
Sorry about
theological
that.
song there.
I can't. Not
Oceans.
Oh my gosh! It was the band that I
Oh,
showed
that's
you.
that band that you. Oh,
Help me.
Yeah.
Oceans. I can't remember.
Help
I'll bring it up
me.
on my phone.
I'll,
But anyway, what
look
was?
it
I was just thinking back on what got me into aggressive music at the very start of it all, and it was right when I was kind of playing Christian in high school. So I was hanging out with a lot of Christians, and a lot of my good friends were already into harder music, hardcore metal, and especially in the Christian scene. And I remember the very first like aggressive hard album that I bought was As I Lay Dying's Frail Words Collapse.
Oh, nice.
That was like the start of all that for me. So what do you guys remember the first like hard band, the first like record that you actually went out and bought?
The first record that I actually went out and bought that was a harder band. I mean, they're definitely not hard as like August Burns Red and stuff like that, but it was the first album that I ever went out and bought was A Beautiful Lie by 30 Seconds to Mars.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're right. That's not very hard.
Well,
Ocean's Grove is the name of that band.
Oh,
All
Ocean's Grove.
Yeah.
My
Awesome.
Wi-Fi wasn't working.
They have a really cool mixture of like hardcore metal, but also they bring in like, I know this is going to sound cheesy, but just go listen to it. They have some of that like new rap metal stuff that was going on with like Limp Bizkit in the 90s
Oh,
and stuff.
gee, yeah.
And it's just a really cool mix of genres. I enjoyed a lot. But
I do like mix of genres.
30 Seconds to Mars.
Yeah, I liked 30 Seconds to Mars. I listened to Under Oath and a lot of the screamo kind of stuff in high school.
Yeah,
I
that's
got
what I'm wondering
into
about,
as well.
yeah.
I got into like Under Oath and My Chemical Romance and like the really like screamo emo type bands. And stuff like that.
I think Under Oath got a lot of people started.
Yeah,
They were the first ones. I remember their Chasing Safety album, and oh gosh, that might have even been the name of the single. I can't remember, but remember they were like one of the first hard bands in the screamo era to have a video on MTV and VH1 and all that.
I can honestly say I've never listened to them.
What?
Yes.
Really?
Wow, that's interesting.
Wow.
What about you? What was the first like hard band that you got into?
Okay, so I would say that for all you haters out there, I got really into Metallica as a junior in high school.
Yeah,
all you haters out there.
I feel like okay.
There's a lot of people that hate on
Let
them.
me clarify because I feel like if anybody got into bands like Under Oath or, later it was August Burns Red, but As Lay Dying, Norma Jean, a lot of the Solid State, Tooth and Nail stuff early on.
Yeah.
I feel like that was all kind of that all came out of us loving bands like Metallica.
Oh yeah,
and
Sabbath,
like
a basis for you coming into that genre of music and like, oh man, this is what I really like.
Yeah,
you get all your influences from that.
And I don't know about you guys, but for the most part, that was because like my dad and the older guys around me and my family, they were like classic rock guys. So you hear it on the radio, and you grew up loving Zeppelin and all that stuff.
Well, the person that I actually learned guitar from at the beginning and then started teaching myself with, it was my uncle. He was a huge 80s metal guy. He was he just loved all kinds of rock music up into the 90s and everything. I mean, he just has always been a big rock guy. And so anytime I go over there and I was hanging out with him and learning guitar and stuff like that, we'd constantly be listening to Judas Priest albums or Metallica stuff or just different bands like that and kind of getting influenced that way. And so and plus listening to that kind of music always brought back those memories of going and hanging out with them and things like that.
So what about after Metallica?
After Metallica,
talking aggressive.
So but then when I really got into some more aggressive rock, I would say probably just out of high school. First album I bought was Lamb of God, A New American Gospel.
Yeah, dang.
That's
very heathenistic.
Yeah, that one and the very next. Well, I wasn't Christian at the time. The Lord had not saved me at the time.
Great album though.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. They said. I mean, they were killing it, especially back then. Man, they had so many good songs. Amazing guitar work.
Right.
Yeah, they were very talented musicians.
I think it was them and then Killswitch.
Yeah, I got into them. I got into Killswitch. I got into Avenged Sevenfold.
Oh
yes.
Waking the Fallen was one of my favorite albums.
Yeah.
I still will put that on. That's one of the best albums ever.
Let's see, that really was their second?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
it had it was a black and white cover with the skull and the wings coming out.
Right.
Yeah, that was a really good one.
That was one of the first albums that I sat down.
First major albums.
That was one of the first albums that I sat down as I don't know, I guess I was 14 or 15 when that came out, and I actually sat down with my guitar and worked through and figured out all those songs.
Oh, yeah.
Not the solos necessarily, but a lot of the riffs.
Yep.
Right, a lot of the main parts. And they're killer. Man, they're so good.
Yeah, that was a great album.
I was actually just listening to them night before last at work. I put it on Pandora, the Avenged Sevenfold.
Nice.
Jesse, what about their older stuff? We had a funny conversation.
Yeah, we've had lots of conversations about this. So I'm one that I love old. When it comes to a band.
Or newer stuff.
Yeah,
I don't like their newer stuff.
I don't like, and that's the joke that we were talking about.
Stuff.
Yeah, when the people that are so contrarian that they're like, "Oh, I don't like their new stuff." It's like, what? And what was your comment? What?
I was just saying, what do you like when somebody says you don't like the newer stuff? I guess there's some stuff that I like more or don't like, but when you just what do you not like? The guitar, the distorted guitars.
It's just a blanket statement
and the singing and stuff. Yeah, that sucks.
Yeah, it's just it's not like they completely change. I mean, it's with any band though. I'm not just talking about Avenged Sevenfold. It's any of them. There's one in particular that I was talking with a friend about, and he's just like, I don't like their new stuff. I'm like, that's okay.
Yeah. Well, you know that, okay, but then you got to think of other bands. You think of Maroon 5. Let's go ahead and go there.
Why?
Let's just go.
Right.
I'm just talking about.
Right.
Go ahead.
I prefer their older stuff for the sheer reason.
Yeah.
Just because their older stuff was actually pretty good.
Yeah.
They were solid musicians, but now they're all into the pop and weird, I don't know. The last couple, I don't know. I just can't really listen
Who
to their
comes
stuff.
to mind when you think about bands that started out great and got better?
Ooh.
The first band that comes to my mind in that category is actually Under Oath.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are we talking hardcore? I was thinking Miles Davis.
I mean, Under Oath, when you think that Chasing Victory cut, and then for my particular taste, I love heaviness. So as they got older and as they matured, of course the recordings got better, the technology got better. They grew as musicians. They're later. I mean, I think every time they put out a new album, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is even better than the last one.
There's a couple of them that come to mind, but in all honesty, to go back to Avenged Sevenfold, that's one of them. I mean, their early stuff was great, but they definitely, and that's why I do like the newer stuff. They grew just as professionally as musicians. They really got, they had a tight knit group. They had everything that was good, and then of course you had the issue with the drummer where he passed away and stuff like that. And I think they kind of made a turn after that because of that happening and stuff. But listening to every single one of because I had all their albums. I mean, going from the very, very first one, basically their demo album, essentially, into the new one, and then further on, the certain guitar work got more technical. The lyrics, I think, got a little bit better.
It's
the
just
one guy
the maturity of it.
Yeah, the guy stopped. The lead singer, I can't remember his name now, but he was instead of just screaming all the time, there was like you can hear him actually singing, and it's like, oh wow, okay,
and he went through a thing too where his voice actually went out for a while, and he was like they weren't able to tour, and he came back and kind of like redefined his style a little bit.
Yeah, and
too.
so to me there was a growth that I think that was good.
They ended up just recently. I don't know how recently. Maybe it was 3 years ago. I'm not sure, but they ended up. Not right after their original drummer died, but maybe a drummer or two after that. They ended up getting the drummer from Dream Theater.
Really?
Oh, really?
I did not know that.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
That guy is.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, ridiculous.
He's a beast on drums.
I've got you to thank for this. A couple years ago, we're hanging out in the garage. Can't remember who was there, but I think it was Zach, our buddy Zach. Now, we started. You guys were going back and forth about some good hardcore, and then you went and threw on Between the Buried and Me.
Oh my gosh!
Oh, yeah.
Now,
Sick.
ever since then, I've been bringing up my Spotify. They are not a sponsor, and
Spotify, not a sponsor.
But man, I've gone through all their albums, just listening to their actual album, and then right after that, they come up with a live album of that.
Yeah.
And man, they kill it.
They have a lot of stuff that's, I think, actually kind of hard to listen to because it's so intense. But they had an album title called Alaska that's just unreal, man.
Right,
unreal.
And I just played the song. Was it Selkies?
Yeah, I wish we could play it and just listen to it. Yeah, will we get in trouble if you play it on your phone?
Yeah,
probably.
Will we get tagged?
How much time do we have? Like 30 seconds?
No, dude, that's actually a myth when it comes to like recording and stuff like that. People say like, oh, the common thing or whatever is as long as you only play like 5 seconds, you're fine. That's actually not the case. They can still sue you.
So what's like in your? I know we've all been to quite a few shows and stuff. In your mind, is there a band that sticks out as like the best live show that you've ever seen?
Dave Matthews Band.
That would be.
You saw them too, Jesse?
No. But they put on a really good show.
Just seeing what they've done, even before you and I went together a few years ago. When I used to watch them a lot on YouTube, their live stuff, listen to some of their live albums. I prefer their live albums because it doesn't feel so canned.
Yeah,
and
they're kind of they have obviously written a lot, but they kind of have that jam band feel.
Exactly, and that's
it's
really
made to be played together.
Kind of label their jam band. Yeah. Let's go ahead and just get out there and you're so.
They put on a great one.
Well, as long as we're on bands like that aren't aggressive, so I categorize in my mind because without question, the best like hard rock band I've ever seen. I've seen them I think 3 or 4 times now. Is Thrice. They're just so far. In fact, I saw them last. 2 summers ago, I saw them in Vegas with.
I'm jealous. I'd love to see Thrice live.
Oh my gosh, man! I've seen them. I've seen them in San Diego once, at a Warped Tour once, and then at their own. Actually, they opened for Rise Against at this Vegas show that I saw them at, and Rise Against played last, and Thrice just stole the show.
Oh, really?
They were just because. Their sound is just so much more perfected than everybody else. I mean, when they hit that first note, you just you just feel it to your bones, man. And every time I've seen them, they're not the most exciting band to watch. They're not like throwing the guitars around and they're not necessarily doing a whole lot of crowd interaction or anything like that. But they are just so stinking professional. So that's hard music. But the best band I've ever seen, because you brought up Dave Matthews, is when I was a kid. I think I was 12 or 13. I saw the Eagles at Staples Center.
Oh man!
And they were just unreal. I was like a kid, and I was crying because it was so good. Dude.
It's so good.
Yeah.
There's. I haven't seen all that many bands in concert, and it kind of sucks. And now that I'm
either.
getting older, I really want to see a whole lot more, and I want to see by far as soon as possible. My top favorite band, number 1, is Coheed and Cambria.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
And I started listening to them around the Apollo 3 album. Everyone knows the Welcome Home song. And,
man, I love that song.
So that's where I got introduced to them.
I was just telling you about that song the other day.
Really? Yeah, I just got introduced to them, I'd say probably 12 years ago or so. And from that moment on, I was listening to every single album. I follow them, social media. Constantly follow them. And I want to see them live, like Something Fierce, because I have nothing but great things about them live.
It's funny because when you think about like punk rock or hardcore or metal, anything like that, for me, and I'm sure there's good stuff going on, and I'm not totally plugged in anymore, but like there's not a whole lot of new stuff that comes out that grabs my attention, and I find
Right.
myself going back and listening to all the bands that I listened to in high school, and that's
right.
a lot of it's just timeless. Like the bands that come to my head are As I Lay Dying, Haste the Day, He Is Legend. Norma Jean was one of my favorites.
He Is Legend, man, I haven't heard them in a
I
while.
got into some crazy music. I like the Chariot. I don't know if you guys ever got into that. It was
Never heard of that.
a lot of feedback and just nonsense, but
Right.
it was crazy.
Well, that's one of them for me that I actually introduced you to. That every time I hear it, it brings back so many memories, and it's just so nostalgic to listen to. Is Billy Talent?
Oh my
It's like a
gosh,
really
yeah.
not well known band. They're from Canada, but they're like this rock. But it's so distinct when you listen to it, because it's rock and it's heavy. But there's so much like just feel to it,
Yep.
and to me that's what I absolutely loved it. I got their first album, listened to it, and then to me, and again going back to the bands that started off at one way and then actually progressed better. They're one of them. I mean, when you listen to some of their more recent albums, it's like, dude, they just
Yep.
the production got so
Oh.
much better. The guitar work was just, I mean, it was insane even in the first album. But it's just like a lot of the riffs they come up with.
Very
It's just
creative.
like, wow, and how in the world? I mean, the guitar player on that is he's just a genius.
Yeah, when you showed me that band just a couple weeks ago, I was and I had heard their name growing up when I was a
Right.
lot more involved with music. But when you show, I'm like, how did I miss this? It's
Right.
like, they're amazing.
Oh yeah, they're so good. That's one that I would love to see live. But I don't think they play much.
Yeah.
I think the last show they did maybe it was like 20. I mean, don't quote me, but I think it was like 2017 or something like that. I think they might be done for a little while.
Okay, I just thought about it. I don't know why. So my buddy John, in my last job, one of my last jobs, he got me into a lot of different metal, and he got me into a band called Mushroomhead.
Oh, okay, yeah,
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't know them.
I know who Mushroomhead
No, I'm
is.
just kidding.
I actually don't.
Really?
Yeah, I don't-
Okay.
I
Well,
mean,
They were
I'll-
kind of like
I'll
new
show you later.
metal-ish, like early 2000s.
Well, a lot of people kind of compared them with Slipknot
Yeah.
because they wear masks and things
Oh,
like that. But
oh,
these guys
okay,
have actually been
yeah.
around longer than them, but they're not so much in the wide open.
Right.
They kind of stay in their, in their town. Like
Yeah.
It was like Illinois area.
Oh, okay.
And man, that's a wicked show right there.
Hometown pride,
They were kind of at their peak in the late 90s, early 2000s. If I
Yeah,
remember right.
that's about that. But I mean, some of the albums that they've actually been putting out are pretty killer.
Yeah. Under Oath was amazing too. I remember I saw them headline a show at the Soma in San Diego, and when they opened it up, when they hit their first note, they had these lights lined up all backstage that were so they blew up the whole like venue with these lights, and it was so bright it like disoriented you for a second. You're like, oh my gosh, I thought I got raptured, dude. I didn't know what was going on.
Well, that's because they didn't want you to see that the band wasn't really up there. They're just playing the CD.
Yeah. That was another band that
Um,
just sound wise was incredible.
Talking about band that I've seen live, that actually probably one of my top favorite ones that I've seen live, and I like their albums and stuff like that. And this is actually going more towards the Christian rock music, but was Skillet.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, really?
I always actually liked Skillet a lot, and I got to see them. I've seen them like 2 or 3 times now. They actually play in Gaylord at a festival that goes on
okay.
there, and so they were there the last couple of years. And they're just it's nothing too amazing, but they just put on a good show.
Just solid.
Yeah, I mean their music's good, and so when you listen to it, it's like, man, this is just great, and they sound pretty much what the album sounds like. They sound like live.
Yeah.
And it's to me, it's professional. The guitar work is crazy. They're just good all around.
Really professional, yeah. I've actually seen them. They've never been a favorite band of mine, but I saw them at the Harvest Crusade. Who does that? What's the pastor's name? The Calvary Chapel guy?
Lori.
Greg Laurie. That's
Greg
right.
Laurie.
I went
okay.
to the Harvest Crusade, by the way, is where a bunch of a bunch of Christians go, and then they re-accept Jesus down on the Angel Stadium.
Oh yeah, that's the festival that they're playing at. That my family we usually go to. We're probably not going to go this year. The last few years we've gone to it. It was a festival that goes in Gaylord. I can't remember the name, but Big Ticket, I think, is the
okay.
name of it. That's kind of like one of those festivals
Yeah.
where it's you have a bunch of Christians come together, and people are like, oh, if you want to come to Jesus, and
Yeah.
we're going to have
my
go.
God.
There's this big cross that we have here. You can come down here and pray, and it's like everyone's flooding down. It's like, really, you're just
Yeah.
getting like everybody gets associated or like
Yeah.
reconverted to Jesus, and it's like, all right.
I don't know what the exact numbers are, and you couldn't know for sure. But man, I've been to
Yeah.
Harvest Crusade twice, and it's like, dude, if I had to guess, I'd say 90% of the people there are already Christians, and then they go down on the field and get a free Bible and respond to the altar call, and it's kind of sickening.
Yeah, speaking of like Christian festivals and stuff like that, and I want to go back to the music for a second. People can make fun of me all I want for this, and I like some of the music. They're more contemporary Christian, but you guys know
So scared.
For King and Country.
yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
they're actually
Yeah,
like them.
I don't mind them. I think they're actually pretty good. I think a lot of the stuff they do outside of the music is really good too. Like
Yeah.
they do a lot of stuff in Australia where they come from, and they do a lot to work with communities and things like that. So I think that's good. But they put on, I think it was last year, no, 2 years ago, we saw them live. They put on an amazing show.
Oh, really?
I mean, they're just it's so theatric, and it's just really like out there, and it's just, you have all the lights going, you have, the
performance.
Yeah, very, that's what they're about,
Yeah.
it's all performance. And they have like, I don't even know, like 13 members of the band,
wow.
and they
Really?
all jump around and play different instruments during a song. And it's like, this is insanity. That's
cool.
crazy. Like the lead singer will go up and he's like smacking like one of those huge drums and stuff like that, and then he'll run around and be playing like this organ thing or whatever,
Yeah.
like this accordion. It's like, what is happening right now? Like, this is incredible. And it's like, yeah, I mean, again, people can make fun of me because some of their songs are like kind of cheesy Christian songs, and yeah, I'll agree with that. But they have some of them that it's like, this is really good. I mean, to me, it's not crazy out there, nonsense gospel type stuff, but
Yeah.
I think they put on a good show though.
Let's do this real quick, and now let's move on to the thing that you had prepared with on
yeah.
the Kimmel Show. But actually, let's take a break. We'll come back to this. Let's go to a break right after we do this.
Yeah.
Real quick, let's go around the table and announce some of our previous band names that we are in.
Okay,
Jacob,
all right.
go.
All right. Aside from my high school band, that was pretty much it. There's another group that I started.
Yeah,
getting
marching
into.
band doesn't
Yeah,
count.
marching band, jazz band. Hello,
Jazz band does count.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you. We never actually came up with a name because we didn't last very long. But we're kind of a metalist band. The only band that I've really been in is King Size Zero.
King Size Zero?
We were a Christian. We call ourselves a Christian ska core band.
Nice.
Nice.
And
what did you play?
I played saxophones.
Nice.
And there was one song
That's
that
awesome.
we did that was kind of like a hardcore song. It was awesome.
was cool.
I think it's called The Dark Side. I might be wrong. I don't think we ever recorded it, but they did have. I was like I did the screaming like hardcore metal stuff, and then
Yeah.
the guy came back in and he was singing. It was a ton of fun.
There was this real quick. There's a band from the high desert where I'm from, and they were a ska kind of punk band, and they were actually really big in our area for a while, called A Billion Ernies. And the thing I remember about that band was I went to church with the guy who played slide trombone,
Okay.
and he was like missing 3 of his fingers.
What?
And so his hand just
Oh,
perfectly
man.
fit his slide
In the
trombone.
slide?
Yeah, we
crazy.
called him the Claw. Anyway, what was some of your band names?
So in high school, I never had multiple bands. We had one. It was me and my best friend who played drums, and then our other friend who did bass. And it was a trio, and we were kind of into like the punk stuff, and so we played a lot of that. We went through a couple different variations of the names because we really couldn't come up with anything. But I think 2 of them that stuck for a long period of time. One of them that stuck for a good amount of time was like Wither. So
Okay.
the name of the band was Wither, and then we had
That's not bad.
No, it was a pretty cool name. We liked it, and we were like, so we went with that one for a little while. And then the one before it, I think, was Arcana Black.
Okay.
Was the name of it, and
That's
I
kind of a
can't remember
cool
what the
name.
name Arcana means, but it's some kind of like
Yeah, as long
weird
as you don't
old
get
word.
big and play any shows, you can change your name as many times.
Yeah,
as
exactly,
you
and
want.
that's exactly what it was. It's like, let's not do Wither anymore. Or let's not do this one. Let's change it.
That's
to
why
something
I
else.
like looking back and seeing. Every now and then you see this article come by, and it's like this band name used to be, and like 10
Yeah.
different names
Yeah.
before they came up with this one name.
I was in a handful of different bands. I can't even remember all the names, but the 2 kind of most successful bands, and by successful I mean we played more than 4 shows. Was the first one that I was in when I was real young. I think I was a freshman or sophomore. Was called Dias Motives, and I found this. Now that I'm looking back, I'm pretty sure the guy was Catholic, but there was like this Catholic priest that went on like a mission and like, I don't know, did some cool work in a local town. So that was that. And then the second band, which we actually had a lot of fun in, we must have played, I think, 20 shows or so, was called Kid Galahad. And that was a mix between an Elvis movie that I loved, Kid Galahad, and then we had all these kind of like cool logo ideas with these green boxing gloves with some like Irish stuff on it.
Oh,
So
yeah.
It was cool. We kind of had a theme going.
That's
really cool.
No, we actually played a lot of shows. The band that I got in, King Size Zero. So it means you're a big nothing without Jesus or big nothing without God. That's the whole
Yeah.
concept behind it. But
Little
and-
oxymoron. I like it.
Yeah, exactly. And so then
Mostly moron. Just
mostly
kidding.
no. But when I high school, they were going to my church. That's how I knew all the guys. So I think it was in the middle of high school I got into the band playing saxophones, and then later on through the beginning of my adult life. But
Jacob just air quoted that, by the way.
yes, that was an air quote.
Yeah,
And,
we have videos. So.
Yeah. But man, we did tours all around. I think it was a senior in high school in the summertime. My dad took us, and we did a tour of like 5-6 states. My dad drove us
That's
around,
awesome.
pulling our trailer with
Really?
all the equipment in it.
Oh,
Oh yeah,
that's
man, we had a
awesome.
There's
blast.
nothing better than playing shows. I miss that.
Oh,
one.
Oh,
yeah,
it's great.
I do.
And then after I got out, they went to Ireland and did a little tour around Ireland. Yeah,
That's
it
rad.
was great.
That's really
All right,
awesome.
guys, we will be back in a few minutes. We're going to transition the show when we get back. Here we go. That was by the way, that was the worst like break transition ever. When we went to break.
I thought it went really smooth.
Yeah.
So during the break, I had a mini heart attack because Jacob's wife thought it would be funny to prank call me with some like pre-recorded like
It's some prank call
this gangster called me and was like threatening my life because I crashed into his car and left my
his caddy.
You done messed up his caddy.
I put it on speakerphone so that Jess could hear. We're looking at each other like, what the heck is
Yeah,
this?
what is
I'm like,
happening?
can he track my location? I was so scared.
Well, it sounded real. I mean,
It did. He
his
was like responding to me.
Yeah. It's like, what in the world?
Did he say your name at one point?
No, I don't think he
No.
said my name. But
Okay.
anyway, not going to sleep tonight.
That was funny. Oh man, so yeah. If you're listening, you're probably wondering why we went into music so much. And the last one was because we love music. I think we all play music. We definitely do, as I've seen from videos that you have put of playing music, and you. And you guys know that I have not. I don't tour around, but I've played different locations and stuff. Even still recently, I do my solo stuff.
You like
So
to play.
we all love to play. We like music. We enjoy that very much so. And I had something that I wanted to kind of get your guys' opinion on in as far as music goes and Christian music and things like that. But it was on my Facebook feed. It popped up. It was Lauren Daigle. Diagonal, however you say her name. Dongle.
It's definitely diagonal.
Daigle. So Lauren Daigle, some people probably know who she is. Some people don't know who she is. But it popped up that she was playing on Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah.
So, and at first I was like, that's interesting. So you have a pretty well-known pop Christian music artist who's playing on a very far left, mainstream television, like talk show or whatever. So, yeah, like Jimmy Kimmel, and she actually even did a performance on Jimmy Fallon and stuff. But I just thought it was interesting because I like looking at him like, okay, and I kind of pull it up and listen and give her props. She's a talented musician.
Oh my gosh,
she's a great singer. She's got a great voice. I think she's really good. And I was actually reading up on an article because I was kind of doing a little bit of preparation for this, and I was reading up on an article that she did an interview where she actually doesn't like to use the phrase Christian artist. Mm-hmm. That she's just an artist. She believes in Jesus and she believes in God and stuff, but she actually just wants to call herself an artist. So when I looked at it, I was like, okay, I can actually respect that a little bit, and it was just really interesting the way that this had came up, though, and I got thinking, I'm like, the biggest thing that kind of concerned me was all the comments on the YouTube video about her performance, because I'm looking at it, I'm like, okay, it's just one of her mainstream songs, all right. To me, it kind of sounds like a ripoff of an Adele song, but that's just my opinion.
That's what some of the comments I saw.
Yeah.
Hey,
Hello?
She just sounds like Adele.
Yeah. This is pretty much, and it was kind of like close to that song, that famous Adele song. And I'm reading through it, though, and one comment came to mind. It was just interesting because they're like, I don't know why anybody would have a problem with this. This is the gospel going into secular television. I'm like, yeah, but no, not really. Like that's to me. I'm not going to sit there and say, I'm all for this because she's a Christian artist, and therefore, just because she's a Christian artist, therefore the gospel's going out into these secular.
Did she
places.
sing like a Christian song? Like, was it about Jesus?
The song was basically. You can look up the lyrics and stuff like that, but it was the song
right here.
It was the song "You Say," and so I think the whole kind of theme behind it is, however you feel about yourself, God says this about you. But the song doesn't really talk about that. It doesn't say God is the one saying this.
She wasn't
just
preaching.
It was. She just the lyrics go, "You say," I think the chorus is like, "You say I'm loved."
You say I'm loved when I can't feel a thing. You say I'm strong when I think I'm weak, and then the bridge before that says, "Taking all I have, and now I'm laying it at your feet. You have every failure, God, and you'll have every victory."
It's legit. I don't got any problems with that.
You're right, exactly. And so for that, it's like, okay, that's good. But when people are just going to flat out say, oh, that's the gospel going into these secular places, by all means, that's great. If an artist is being able to go on to Jimmy Kimmel or Jimmy Fallon and things like that, but what people, I think, need to kind of understand or wrap their minds around is that doesn't mean it's gospel proclamation into these areas. It doesn't.
It's not necessarily a bad thing.
Right.
In fact, I would say it was a good thing.
Yeah, it is a good thing. I mean, I think for her, even as an artist, and like I said, she just wants to be claimed as an artist, not so much a Christian artist. It's good for her to be able to get onto these mainstream things. Like she's very talented, and her career's actually going in a direction that's, and in all honesty, most of her stuff, I think she's even said like she's going into a more mainstream, kind of getting away from like the Christian radio stuff so much and going into mainstream. So it's like, okay, that's really good, but that's just the biggest thing that I wanted to comment on was like, okay, just because she sings songs about God and she does this doesn't mean that it's gospel proclamation.
Yeah, it's a bit of an overstatement.
Yes.
I think it'd be maybe you could say like, I mean, praise God that someone who identifies as a Christian. And I know she's got some like theological issues too that came up a couple months back.
Well, most Christian artists do.
That's true. That's true. But even that stuff aside, let's just go ahead and say praise God. A Christian got on a huge network TV station, was on a mainstream show, and that's all good. But it's an overstatement to say that the gospel is proclaimed.
Yeah, I mean, and that's, and to me it was kind of telling, because it's like, well, what is your idea of a gospel proclamation then?
Sure.
If that's your idea of the gospel going out into the secular world, like, what are you? How truncated is this gospel that you?
Now, if she would have sat down with Jimmy after the show and pre-supped him,
right, that would be fantastic.
Jimmy would have been like, oh, "Hey, that was a great performance." She should have been like, "By what standard, Jimmy?"
Yeah.
You know what I've noticed though too? That would have been great. About
what is truth,
10
Jimmy?
years ago is they used to go ahead and 10, 15 years ago they interviewed the artists after, and they've really gotten away from that.
Sometimes,
yeah. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't.
Right, and man, that would have been good right there.
Well, and that's the thing, though. I mean, how much would
maybe it was
you
a good
have
thing that she
gotten?
didn't get interviewed.
Right. She probably have some more controversy, because the first one was about her statements on homosexuality.
Right.
She had interviewed, and they're like, "Well, what are your thoughts on
But that's what we were something about that.
That's what we were talking about before we started the podcast. Is how it's like, in a sense, it's kind of dangerous to do a podcast, to do a blog, to say anything at all on Facebook, to put your music out there, because as soon as you let anything out of your mouth, there's going to be critics, there's going to be pushback, and it takes a little bit of guts to do anything in the public eye.
Well, that and some thick skin.
For sure.
And to be able to have the confidence to go, okay, this is me, this is my stuff, I'm going to put it out there. And not that I'm defending a lot of it. I don't really know a lot of her music. Or, I don't really listen to her or anything like that. I know she's pretty mainstream on pop Christian radios and things like that. And I know even like the radio stations around here that are Christian, they play a lot of her stuff. And
I think I've heard some churches have used at least one of her songs as a worship song.
Which I don't know how I feel about that.
Well, I mean, she's not singing about rolling waters and drowning in an ocean. So
yeah, but it's like I don't know how I come down on that either, because I remember even at our last church we would talk about what worship songs we wanted to use from certain theologically inaccurate bands like Hillsong, like let's say Hillsong or Lauren Diagonal has a let's say they actually do put out a song that's perfectly theologically accurate, and then a lot of people want to say that, and like I said, I don't know where I come down. You don't want to use that just because it came from Hillsong or something like that. And then on the other hand, like I don't really have it's so tough, because at the end of the day it's art, and it's like art it's subjective, so it's hard to say anything for sure. But like when she says, what was the quote that you just said, like rolling oceans or something like that?
I was more referring to Hillsong on that one.
But it's like,
but
the line is like, okay, so we're not, so
you'll have all the failures. Basically, I'm giving everything to you. I think I'm paraphrasing, but
you will have all my failures.
You'll have all the failures, and you'll have all victory.
Yeah, and I just want to be careful that we don't you don't want to go so far that you say like, well, you can't use like that's metaphorical language when you talk about oceans or stuff like that. It's like, I don't know. It's a weird thing.
Well, and here's the other thing too. Like, and this is something that I thought about when, do you guys know that bigger Christian song that came out just, I think it was a couple years back, that Reckless Love. There was a whole bunch of issue around all that.
We played it for a while, and then our pastor actually said, we're not going to play that anymore.
Yeah, well, and what's interesting, though, is the same people that, and there are issues I have with it as well. I think the tune is good. I mean, musically, it's like, okay, that's pretty good. And even like the artist, when he makes statements about what that means, it's like, okay, I think you need to maybe nuance that a little bit better. You're not really saying that right. And so, it does cause a lot of issues and problems to say it's your reckless love is what saving it. It's like, well, God's not reckless. To sit there and say God's reckless and that it's basically thoughtless or things like that. I don't think he necessarily was coming out and saying it like that, but
that's how pretty much everybody took it that way.
Yeah, exactly, and that was the big issue around it. What was so interesting to me is around that same time I was listening back to a bunch of King's Kaleidoscope stuff, which love King's Kaleidoscope. They're great, it's awesome. But on one of their songs, they have a line that says almost the same thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm actually going to try to find it if I can. but their line was essentially like, you saved me with a reckless love.
Oh.
And I'm just like, huh. And but what threw me was, again, it's putting stuff out onto social media or saying things about something or doing something like that is some of the same people who would rail against, like, oh, I can never sing that on the radio. That song's so bad.
Yeah.
Reckless Love. Corey Asbury, I think, was the name of the artist who did it. I can never sing that. These same people love King's Kaleidoscope and get things like that. It's like, but they made similar statements.
Right.
I mean,
It's tricky.
Yeah, it's such a hard thing to figure out, and again, for the artists who are putting their stuff out there, like they're putting out what they've felt, what they've wanted to put out. And I'm not sitting here just trying to accept any kind of Christian music that comes out. Obviously, there's some that it's like, no, you are theologically whack and you are way off rails with that. You need to be, you need to slow down. And, because a lot of it, as an artist who writes his own songs and plays his own songs, a lot of careful thought has to go into how am I going to present this? And you try to do it in a way that is artistic and, just from the heart. And a lot of my own solo stuff, like, because I do a lot of singer-songwriter stuff, it's from the heart. So it's prayers that I've prayed before. And a lot of that's driven by theological thought and how you see, how you view this world. And it comes from worldview. And I think it was Jeff Durbin and a bunch of other people who say this, that songs are preaching. I mean, even mainstream pop songs that you hear, it's like they're preaching a worldview. They're putting that out there. So that's why it's like you do have to be careful, in another sense, artists who are putting their music out. It's like you should have careful thought instead of that put into your lyrics.
People grab onto that and they adhere it to their life.
And, exactly.
They get onto it and they go, man, you're right. I love this song. I love what you're saying, and I'm going to apply this now.
Yeah, and it's weird. You kind of have to figure out like how much does an artist who's Christian, who loves Jesus, like how responsible are they for like the theological well-being of others? It's like to some degree, obviously we want to have biblical standards. That goes without saying, but also it's like, man, can a Christian artist just put out a song and not have to like have the weight of the world on them because they led somebody like in a very like nuanced, theologically inaccurate way or something like that? It's weird.
Can we get someone like Ascend the Hill up on there, sing an old hymn up on Jimmy Kimmel or something?
I love that hymns album that Ascend the Hill put out.
Yes, sir.
That is a really good album.
Yeah.
But and to go back to King's Kaleidoscope, they've even caught some wind on I think it was one of their more recent albums.
I think it was on his live. Was it like a live album, right?
No, it was on a recorded one. There was the last song on it though had an actual explicit.
It was a
poem.
It was a poem.
And it was basically
it
was a prayer and it was a poem, and it was expressing his own thoughts and beliefs and prayers and how, in what I liked about it was he's really expressing what's coming from him, and what his really thoughts are. But in another sense, I'm like, dude, that's the stuff you got to be careful about, because it's like now you have to put it as an explicit album, and it's like, wait, you're a Christian artist and you have an explicit logo on here.
And me personally, I say so what?
Yeah, like, I mean, so do I.
I'm not convicted by the cuss word necessarily if it's used in a certain. I remember a funny story about that song. We were at the church in Apple Valley, and we were playing King's Kaleidoscope like while everybody was congregating before the service started, and some of the album was playing, and that song came on. And so I was like talking to a group of parents or something like that, and I see our administrative pastor like running across the sanctuary to the sound booth, and I'm like watching him like, what is he doing? And he goes up there and like slams his paws or switches a song or something, and then I'm looking at him, I'm like, what's up? And he's like, and then he finally later he's like, dude, that last song on the King's Kaleidoscope album was playing. I'm like, oh shoot, good catch.
Oh man, that's funny.
What was the theological question that you wanted to get into?
You wanted
I was joking with you. God, okay. Everybody's going to have a little insight into the weird way that my brain works and things like that. And I think I know the answer to it, but it's just a weird.
I'm so scared.
Yeah, this is like an everyday, not
Brian,
an everyday situation.
Brian,
but,
you first.
Okay. So I was thinking this. Let's say you have a guy who's a single. He's not married. He has no family to speak of. At least that he's around, or wherever he's living in an area, he's all by himself. He's a Christian, so he comes to Christ. He's been a Christian for a few years, let's say. It doesn't really matter the background. The biggest thing is this guy is a Christian. He doesn't have a wife or kids or anything. He's just a single Christian guy.
Okay.
We would say, okay, that guy's saved. He's a Christian.
Yeah.
God has saved him.
I feel like you're beating around the bush.
Yeah, a little bit. Well, because it's probably going to be the dumbest question ever.
So does he have any family?
No. So let's say this guy is driving, gets into a car accident. Okay, bad car accident.
Is this the guy that prank called me earlier?
Yes. No, he gets into a horrible accident
All right.
and has severe amnesia.
Okay.
Doesn't
Can't
remember
remember anything.
Yeah. Doesn't know who he is. Doesn't know where he grew up. Doesn't know his life. Doesn't know anything.
Okay.
Anything at all. Doesn't remember being a Christian life, anything like
Sure.
that. He doesn't remember any of that.
Sure.
Is that guy still saved?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, and that's where my initial thought was. But it's
Next
like,
question.
when you think about it, though,
No, it
it's
is
like
tricky, though, yeah.
Yeah, because it's like, well, you don't know Jesus. You don't have
it comes
any.
down to regeneration. Did God do the work?
Do
of
the
salvation
saving work,
in his
and
heart?
and
Of
again,
course.
I think it goes back to the scripture where God knows the heart.
Although, and I think I might have mentioned this before on the podcast, and if I have, forgive me, but that plays into what I run into a lot with hospice, because I spend a lot of time around patients who don't know what day of the week it is.
Oh,
dude.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
and they don't know who the
dementia
president
and-
is. They've got
yeah.
dementia. If I walk in the room, they say hello. I'll shake their hand, introduce myself.
Mm-hmm.
I walk out. I come back a minute later. They don't know who I am.
It's like 10-second Tom.
Almost every time that I run into a Christian patient, God has hidden the word in their heart.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing. It ministers to me every time, because I'm like, man, I'm sitting with a lady who doesn't, like, I have one lady who's, I think, 93 years old, and she tells me every time I meet with her that she's 36.
Wow.
But she's been a Christian forever, and so we can talk gospel. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I remember you telling me about
So-
that. It is a huge testimony
Yeah.
to the fact that God does that, and I think that would apply even in this situation where somebody who does that, if they are saved, they have the law written on their hearts. They're going
Right.
to remember, certain things, or at least how they're going to live out the rest of their life, and then trying to reclaim their life and remember things. I think it's their actions outwardly.
Check
are
this
gonna
out,
do that.
though. That scripture comes to mind, and I think it's in the Gospel of John, where he says, if they've gone out from us, they were never truly with us. So maybe if he really has no recollection and he's hostile to the gospel,
Yeah.
we would start to say, well, was he actually saved? in the first
saved?
place?
Yep. In the first, and that's what I mean. It gets kind of a
Yeah.
tricky, but no, there's a little insight into the way my brain works.
Yeah,
so,
that's cool, man. That's a
yeah.
good question.
I just thought that was interesting.
Cool. All right. Well, we're going to keep it short this week. Let's get into our reconciled recommendations.
maymays?
Our maymays and our...
Yeah, let's do the memes of the week first. Why don't you
Okay,
get
cool.
us started?
Oh, gosh. Let me see if I got mine up.
Okay,
I
I'll
got
start
mi-
because I got.
go ahead.
All right,
Oh, you
go.
got yours.
I got mine, too.
Yeah, Jacob, go ahead. You start.
All right, this is the the scene from Family Guy. It's been going around.
Oh,
with,
I love this. I love this meme format. It's great.
It's great, and it's the Book of Mormon at the top here.
Yeah.
And it says, "You guys always act like you're better than me." And then there's the Old Testament, there's the New Testament, and then there's the 10 movie collection of VeggieTales.
And it's the rest of the family sitting on the couch,
Right,
looking at them all elitist.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Oh,
That's a
that's
good
funny.
one.
That's awesome. Okay, so mine is another Office one. I think we've had a couple Office memes.
That's because it's a wonderful show.
Because it is. It's funny. Okay, so in this one, and it's weird because I found this one a few weeks back, so I couldn't remember if we actually used it on the show or not. So if it's a repeat, sorry, but I don't think it is. I think I used it.
I don't
using
think
a
so. I
different
think
one.
you showed us after the show.
Okay. So this one is funny. So it's got the girl from The Office, and I can't remember her name now. It's bugging me. The younger girl from The Office, who was in the relationship with the one guy.
The old receptionist, the young receptionist.
Yeah. So it's her on the bottom. On the top of it, it's got someone holding up two different pictures, and it says, "Corporate needs you to find the difference between this picture and this picture." And on the one it says, "You can lose your salvation." The other one that said, "Works-based salvation." And on the bottom it shows her, and she's like, "They're the same picture."
That's awesome. Mine this week is another good just meme format. Is the I wish I knew what show this is from.
I'm going to look this up now.
The cartoon guy that's wiping his head, he's
Yeah.
sweating. He's got the two buttons in front of him. The first button is taxation is theft and establishmentarianism is mean. And the second button is the IRS rated Benny Hinn. LOL. We all hate taxation, but gosh, it was. We all found a little joy in Benny Hinn getting raided, I think.
Yeah.
You know, I did not hear about this.
Down with the prosperity gospel.
Yeah, not game on that.
All right, that's memes of the week. We'll get into reconciled recommendations. My recommendation, man, I've been reading this book. It's been hard to put down. I got turned on to this book by Bo Marinoff and his Axe to the Root podcast. That's a side recommendation. Everybody should be listening to that podcast. But he says... He highly recommends this book for just a view on history and the way that Western Christianity came to be. It's The Foundations of Social Order, Studies in the Creeds and Councils of the Early Church by R.J. Rushdoony. This thing is just incredible, man. He goes through all the creeds and councils of the early church, even gets into... the doctrines of grace a little bit, possession of the Holy Ghost, canon law. The chapter on canon law is so good. And what really opened my eyes was how much the early creeds and councils helped, especially Chalcedon. And as I was reading this, it made sense that Rushuni started the Chalcedon Foundation. Of course, I had heard of that council before, but the Chalcedon, their definitions were just monumental to establishing what we have now in the West, and the just not exactly now in our day, but the initial victory of the gospel in the West. So that's my recommendation this week. It's an incredible book. Everybody should pick it up. It helps you think through history with a really, really solid Christian worldview. And I was thinking back in my Bible college days and going, as I was reading this, I'm thinking how this is not required reading for every church history course is beyond me. It is just excellent.
No, that's really cool. Mine is one that I've had for a little while, and I've actually just within the last week got back into it because I kind of set it down because we had other things going on, and so just doing preps on different talks or different even podcast topics and stuff like that. I just kind of was like, all right, it's going to go on my wayside because I usually try to do, I don't know, I try to read like 3 books at a time usually.
Yeah.
I'm like reading through one, and
you
I'll
have
do
them
a
all
little
3 in
section.
your hand.
Yeah, all at the same time. I just go through and like speed read all of them. No, I usually have like 3 or so going at once, where I'm like reading through, and then it's other times I'll read through this one just to because I have so many of them that I want to get to, and it's like how am I going to do this?
Jay, your OCD would just explode, huh?
I can't do it. I have to read one, but I have a hard time reading the Bible and then another book along with it because I just want to keep going through the Bible.
Yeah, no, that's great.
And then, but then I really want to get back over to this one.
Yeah, go ahead, read the Jesus juke us. I'm reading the Bible.
I'm reading the Bible.
You guys read other books? Oh.
You guys always acting like you're better than me.
I read the Bible. No, so do we all do. Nothing wrong with that. Anyway, this one is The Second Coming of the New Age. It is by Stephen Bankars and Josh Peck, and the little sub thing, it says, The Hidden Dangers of Alternative Spirituality in Contemporary America and Its Churches.
Oh, we need that.
And yeah, it got back into it because there's another side recommendation. There's a podcast that Apologia kind of helped put out, and it's called Cultish.
Oh yeah,
such a
and
good
it's
show.
about like the different cults and things like that, and they go into newer ones and older ones. And I've been listening to it since it started up. The host, I believe, is Jeremiah Roberts, who's done a lot of work with Apologia before, and he's been on Apologia Radio, and he's done evangelism with Jeff and James White going to the Mormons and things like that. And so he's just a really solid dude, and so he's the host of it. And Jeff's on it every once in a while. They'll be talking about Mormonism or whatever subject
the topic,
whatever they're in. And the most recent one was. They had Stephen Bankars on, and they had him talking about the New Age movement in churches that you see today, and then like the actual history of some of the New Age movement and where that kind of thought came into Western civilization and things like that.
And this guy was in that whole thing.
Yeah, he was huge in the New Age movement.
Okay.
I mean, he actually had a website that had like thousands upon thousands of followers and subscribers and things like that. I mean, he was big in the movement, and then he ended up coming to Christ, found Jesus, and ever since then, he's now does apologetics against New Age movement and things like that. And so he'll put up videos on his YouTube page and his website, Reasons for Jesus, and he's just
kills it.
Yeah, absolutely kills it when it comes to the New Age movement. And
that reminds me, one of the things that was awesome about this Foundations of Social Order book is Rushuni does a great job in showing how all the different ways that you can mess up the Trinity, which was the main focus of so many of those early creeds and councils, can allow for humanism to explode in all kinds of different manifestations. So it was real interesting seeing how if you overemphasize one of Jesus's 2 natures, you allow for humanism to sneak in all kinds of different ways.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. Well, and that's something that we see in the churches today. And then one thing why it resonated with me listening to that again and getting back into reading this kind of stuff is because it's so in depth into the Western civilization in America. I mean, you have like huge name people like Oprah and people like that are like propagating this kind of stuff and saying, yeah, this is it. And basically it has like a little list of some of the stuff that he goes into in this book, and I'll just read that. It talks about Buddhism, Hinduism, mysticism, transcendentalism, Gnosticism, paganism, pantheism, occultism, esotericism, witchcraft, meditation, yoga, which that's a huge one.
Yep.
You have a lot of people that are into yoga and don't have a basis of what it really is, what the different versions of it are, what it actually means spiritually, like when you're doing these kind of things.
Is that why you looked at me weird when I walked in with my yoga pants today?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But no, it does yoga, psychedelics, channeling, divination, sorcery, mind science, reincarnation, astral projection, ufology, which I thought was interesting because he does go into like some of the ancient alien, some of the debacles behind that.
Don't look at my YouTube history.
and that's the thing. It's extremely interesting stuff. A lot of the stuff
really
like
is,
astral projection and things like that. Like before I was, converted. What was our first episode? Third birth. I had my
your third birth.
Third birth. I remember in like middle school and throughout, like it's stuff that's really popular, and like it's stuff that you like. I was huge into like lucid dreaming and like trying to figure out how I can get into lucid dreaming and then do all these things and trying to learn about astral projection and like I got really into like the New Age movement, and so this kind of stuff resonates with me a lot because it's like I was in there as a kid, just being really engrossed into this and just thought it was the most fascinating thing. And it's like I grew up in a Christian household. Like my parents were Christian, and they took us to church, and still, because this kind of stuff's not talked about in churches today. This kind of stuff is not really taught on in a way that you need to be warning these people. Like this is the stuff that's coming into the churches. We need to be talking about this because it basically is going and following false gods and false idols and things like that people need to know about so that they know the truth of the gospel and really be giving the foundations of true faith and what I like what Francis Schaeffer said, true truths, like the true truths of the Bible and stuff like that to ward off against these kind of things that are so pervasive and come in.
Yeah,
so
and they're pervasive in the modern church in sneaky ways. Like nobody's not necessarily like
super sneaky,
blatantly getting into astral projection in a Reformed church, but there's a lot of people that are just kind of misguided or letting some of that stuff sneak in.
But you have it on a grand scale, like some of the more recent stuff that's popped up with like Bethel. Like, what is that? What is that?
The grave laying, dude.
Yeah, and like they had like the Bethel. What? Yeah, it was like Bethel. I don't know if it was Bethel Church, but it was a huge.
I can't remember what it was called. Yeah. Dr. White talked about that one.
Yeah.
I can't remember what the heck it was called now. Yeah, it was
and don't they have an actual school?
Stuff.
It's like Bethel School of Supernatural or whatever. I'm like, what?
In fact, there was a big story that just came out this week where one of their students, a young lady, spoke out against it, and she got kicked out of the school for it.
Yeah, and it's like, wow. I mean, that's the start
paganism.
of a cult. That's the start of a cult. That's the start of paganism. That's putting that right into there, and people are trying to get silent. People are silencing people. Obviously, I remember. I think that one popped up on my Facebook feed as well. That story, and it's like this is. We need to be speaking against this. We need to be talking about this. Churches need to be teaching it so that these people are aware that this stuff comes in and you don't even know it.
Mm-hmm.
Like these, like who's that one guy that teaches about like the Christ consciousness? Deepak Chopra.
Yeah.
He's talking about, and he makes it so Christianized, though. Like, I mean, they speak the same language. They're speaking Christianese, and it's like, no, man, you're talking about all of us being Jesus. I'm like, what are you talking about?
There's a great quote or a clip that goes around Facebook and YouTube every now and then of Deepak at a conference, and the guy who came up, they do like a question and answer thing. The guy must have been a pre-sub guy because he comes up and asks Chopra if he. I think he asked something like, does absolute truth exist? And of course Deepak goes, no, it doesn't. And the guy goes, is that absolutely true?
Yeah. Is that absolutely true?
And the crowd just exploded, and I think Chopra sat down, and it was beautiful.
That's all you can do. Sit down. Just sit down.
Just sit down.
You have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. It's so pervasive. It comes in, and it's like it's Christians being led astray.
Yep.
And then a lot of them are losing their faith because of it, and then they don't know what to believe and what to think, and it's dangerous stuff.
Yep. Do you have a recommendation this week?
Well, we talked about Jeff Durbin earlier. What's his name? I think his son's name is Sage, his oldest son. Yeah. And he's really huge on true history.
Yeah.
The stuff that they don't actually teach us. So this is not theological in any way. But the...
Oh, of course it is.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. Yes, it is. See what you did there. Okay, so all the lies that we're led to believe about Abraham Lincoln and how he was such a savior of the slaves and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And so I started reading a book, and it's upstairs, so I can't
reference it. What did he do? Did he do a show or a podcast or something?
He did a podcast, he was on the show with his dad, and they got talking about actual history and how everything started.
Yeah.
Back around.
So it was an apology episode.
Yeah, it was on maybe a year ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he had Sage on.
All of the Apologia radio stuff. Just go.
just go listen to it. Just go. It's all good.
Oh yeah.
It's all edifying. But man, he was talking about. So I started doing some research trying to find out a good author who's talking about the truth of Abraham Lincoln, and oh man,
good stuff.
DeLorenzo, I think, is the name of the author.
Oh, okay.
And it blows your mind to think that he actually didn't even care about the fact that the blacks were being enslaved, and he talked many times before his presidency against blacks in very bad ways. And he the only thing that he wanted was if slaves were going to go ahead and be freed, he wanted to get them all out of the United States.
Oh, okay.
He wanted nothing with them doing here. They were dirty, this, that, and the other.
Well, the biggest thing that a lot of people don't realize, I think, when it comes to like the Civil War was a lot of it was, a lot of what we're taught in schools, in public schools at least, is that like, oh, Abraham Lincoln went and freed the slaves, and that's what the whole Civil War was about. It's like there was a lot more political nuances about the Civil War than a lot of people want to lead on to.
Yeah, and there's the whole idea that, well, the North was completely against slavery, this, that, and the other. No, actually, they were just as racial against blacks.
A lot of them were,
It was bad.
Which is a condemnation against any Christian person in that time period that said that it was good to own slaves and stuff, because obviously no.
And if you want to get more into that, the book to go get is McDermott's The Problem of Slavery in Christian America, and it's also on Reconstructionist Radio right now. Our boy Joe Salant, I think, narrated an article basically giving the summary of that. It's incredible,
Right, well, this one chapter, I mean, it came to the point where Abraham Lincoln had went ahead and forced a draft, and the people of New York were completely against it.
A military draft?
Yeah, a military draft to get them down there, because the North was losing.
Yeah.
Horribly.
Right.
And so they were fighting against the civilians were fighting against this. We are not getting drafted for something we don't believe in. We're not paying for it. You can go ahead and pay, I think it was like $150 to go ahead and not be drafted.
That's what I did.
Right? Really?
Yeah, I was a Dodge drafter. Draft dodger.
And so they were, I'm not paying for it, and I'm not going. A lot of these people were. And so Abraham Lincoln went ahead and sent these different regiments over and just slaughtered people.
Wow. Yeah, we definitely get the cookie cutter stuff in public school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Speaking of cults, one of my buddies made me laugh the other day because we have another one of our family friends coming out, moving out here to Michigan in 2 weeks. And my buddy calls me up and he's like, what are you guys doing? Starting some sort of post-millennial cult out there? So, hey guys, this has been, what are we on, episode 6?
Episode 6.
Sure,
episode 6,
yes.
Reconciled Radio. Thanks for tuning in again. Be sure to like this episode and subscribe to our channel. Also give a like to our Facebook home base, Reconciled Media, to stay up. Just killing it on the transition.
You're doing great. You're doing so
like
well.
our Facebook home base, Reconciled Media, not Reconciled Radio, but Reconciled Media, to stay up to date on the content we're putting out. Our memes of the week will get posted, and other happenings throughout the week. Have a great week, you guys. What's our
Oh, I didn't realize
we're done.
I didn't realize you were pointing at me.
Love you, bye-bye.
Next week, can I speak this into existence like Joel Osteen style? I'm hoping that we have Jordan Wilson on next week. I've been in contact with him. I'm going to go ahead and name it and claim it. Jordan, come on our show. We'll have you on Saturday.
Believe, receive.
I'm hoping to have him on to talk about building wealth from a Christian worldview. So that's what we got hopefully lined up. And if not, we'll hunt him down.
Yeah.
Can do.
Figure something out.
Yeah. Cool.
We'll just stop him until he goes on there.
Have a great week. No king but Christ. You know what it is.
Yeah. And hey, Christians, go cultivate a kingdom culture.